Hey film fans, my name is David and this is Film Collector Archive, and on today's video we will be discussing made-for-TV films. I'm really excited to jump in on this topic. I really love the made-for-TV format, and especially for titles from the 60s to the 90s. And that's actually a perfect segue into how I'd like to introduce our discussion on this topic, because I recently received a book, and I want to publicly thank one of the subscribers, one of the friends to this channel, 80s Quack, for sending this book to me, for being so kind and sending this book to me. I did talk with him, and he gave me permission to kind of embarrass him a little bit and just thank him publicly. So this is a really wonderful book on made-for-TV films, and if you're at all into that type of format, you probably are familiar with the author, or more specifically the editor here. This book was edited by Amanda Reyes, and this is Are You in the House Alone? Now this is a TV movie compendium, and this covers the format from 1964 through 1999. And as you can see on the cover here, this is actually edited by Amanda Reyes. So she is a large contributor in terms of content in the book. So she's authored a lot of the content here, but there's a lot of other voices as well. Really great resources for the made-for-TV format that do reviews. So basically what you get here is there's a bit of a history of made-for-TV films, and that goes through, in fact, let me get to the contents here. So there's an introduction by Amanda, and then there's kind of essays, if you will, all the way through page 78. So on page 78 is where the kind of the review format starts, and they've even got those categorized, which is really nice. So there's a lot of great titles, and you can see on the cover here, there's some of the main made-for-TV titles that are pictured here. You have the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special. You have the titular Are You in the House Alone? You have Stephen King's It, among some others. And what I'd like to do is actually, well, first I wanted to discuss the book, but what I'd like to do as well is kind of give you a little bit of a tour through some of the made-for-TV titles that I have in my collection, titles that I think are well worth your time. And a lot of these too, this is the perfect time of year for this, as we head into these final days here before Halloween, and make some recommendations. These are mainly going to be kind of fall into the thriller, even horror realm, and so I'll make some recommendations there. But I just want to really tell you this book is well worth your money. Amanda's done a great job compiling, putting this book together, and her content in here, as well as the many other authors that we have in here, are again well worth your time. They give great kind of mini reviews, and this is a great way to really dive into the format with great recommendations. And in fact, yeah, the format here, let me just show you. I'll just get to, so here's one page. So this is a TV movie, Born Innocent, starring Linda Blair. So you can see here you get some nice images, and then you have the reviews, and the reviews also include director, cast information, and then the air date, as well as the network that carried the movie, so, or that produced the movie. So this is a really great way to get an education on the format, and just, again, get some great recommendations. So, and as you can see, it's not a tremendously large book, but this is not necessarily one that you would just sit down and read cover to cover in one stop. This is more, if you want a recommendation, you can kind of glance through and get an easy review, and kind of go from there in terms of picking a title that you might like to watch. So really, really great book here, and I really like the how this book is made as well. It's got the nice soft touch cover, just really great design as well. So highly, highly recommended. Are You in the House Alone? And speaking of Are You in the House Alone, that's where we'll go first. So I'm just going to make some recommendations here, or more just kind of show you some of the made-for-TV titles that I have in the collection. So this comes to us from Vinegar Syndrome, and this is Televised Terror. So this is a 3-film box set collection, and the first film in here, actually, and I'll just show this one. It is Are You in the House Alone? So there is the cover, the back, and I really like kind of the overall design that they went for with this set. And with this particular release, I don't let's see. Yeah, so this one's newly scanned and restored in 2K from its 35mm interpositive. And then you get creating musical themes, an interview with composer Charles Bernstein, and an audio essay by film historian Amanda Reyes, who we just talked about. So a couple of good extra features to kind of get a little bit more education on the film. And yeah, Amanda's a name that you'll just see all over the format with different releases. But this is a really cool set. I like the design on here with the Police Stand By, and just these really high quality sets from Vinegar Syndrome are great. So moving right along here, one of the partner labels from Vinegar Syndrome is Fun City Editions, who I absolutely love. I like Vinegar Syndrome. There's quite a bit of content from them that's just not my cup of tea, but a lot of stuff from their partner labels I'm bringing into the collection because they're just really fantastic releases. But Vinegar Syndrome proper does do some great releases. They have some great titles that I have on my shelf. So from Fun City Editions, this is Primetime Panic. This is a new release from them and is a 3-film collection. So here we have Dreams Don't Die, Freedom, and Death Ride to Osaka. And I really like this. So again, you have this same style of box here. And something that I really like on these, we'll just take the first one here, Dreams Don't Die. On the cover, you can see it's like an advertisement. So Friday night movie, 8 p.m. I love that design. It's just really kind of a nostalgic thing, just the way that they've presented the set here. So, and as you can see, the inner box here is really cool as well. So another great set from Fun City Editions, but it's got the exact same packaging as the Televised Terror set. So I'm going to save what's my personal favorite TV film for the last one that I'll show you. But moving on to Warner Archive, I just have one Warner Archive title, and then we're going to move into a bunch of Kino Lorber, and then I've got one studio release that I'll show you. But Warner Archive right here has Bad Ronald. Now this is a title that I had heard about for a long time and was kind of curious, but not enough to to bite, to actually watch it. But eventually I obviously picked this up on Warner Archive, and I absolutely love it. This is a great little made-for-TV thriller, and Ronald here lives with his mother, and this all happens right at the beginning of the film, but he's kind of looked at as as kind of a geeky, nerdy kind of guy, and he's trying to you can tell that he has interest in this specific girl. He kind of gets laughed out of he goes to visit this girl at her house, and she's got a bunch of friends over, and he kind of gets laughed out of the place, and he ends up going on his way home, and one of the younger kids in the neighborhood, he bumps into her, and one thing kind of leads to another, and he ends up accidentally killing this young girl. And so his mother, they're trying to decide what to do, and so that's all that I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it because it's actually really interesting what happens after that, kind of the meat of the story after that, but that's just enough maybe to whet your appetite. Really, really great. I believe this is 1974, and yeah, it was produced by Warner Brothers. Yeah, and the runtime on this is actually just 74 minutes. So 1974, and it's 74 minutes. So so that worked out really well. But yeah, really creepy, well made. Definitely has its cheesy elements to it. But this is one that I've actually watched with my teenage son. We've seen this a few times together. It's one that we regularly come back to, that he really likes as well. In fact, he's got this on his shelf as well. So this is Bad Ronald, and no extra features to speak of on this title, just in case you're interested to know that. Okay, so now we're going to jump into Kino Lorber. These are all very, very recent releases from them. They're really diving in hard on the made-for-TV films, and I'm really excited about it. So I've watched all of these recently, actually with the same son that I was just talking about with Bad Ronald, and we've really enjoyed all of these, some more than others, but the first one up here is The Screaming Woman with Olivia de Havilland. The great Olivia de Havilland. She gives a great performance here as an older woman who says that she hears a voice coming from the ground. She's just come back. Her mental stability is definitely in question, and she claims that she hears a woman asking for help coming from the ground, and nobody believes her. And as we come to realize very, very early on, there is in fact a woman buried in essentially what is her backyard, and so she has to convince those around her to believe her and help save this woman before it's too late. So this is from 1972 with a runtime of 73 minutes. So these are really breezy, quick, easy watches. That's something else that's really nice about this format. You don't ever see anything unless it's a mini series. I'm thinking something like Stephen King's It, which I actually did not bring out here with me, but that's something else that's in my collection. Where that's a longer, kind of two-part, you could almost call it a mini series, but most of these are just going to be a really easy, 70 to 90 minute watch, because you got to think they have to account for commercial time, and so with a 73 minute runtime on TV that may have run 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, depending on the commercial runtime. But anyways, really great title here, and this does have an audio commentary, and then trailers, and then some really great newly commissioned artwork here by Vince Evans, and I believe he did the artwork for the next two, in fact maybe all of these titles, but really great cover art. So next up, and this was our favorite of this trio that I'm going to show you here. This is starring Bette Davis, and this is Scream Pretty Peggy. Yeah, my son and I both enjoyed this one the most. He was really, really high on it, and which I was happy to see that he's really kind of grabbing onto these older titles. He likes the aesthetic, kind of the look and feel of these older films, which again I think is awesome. But this is about a young girl who comes to basically be of help to Bette Davis and her son, who is an artist. He's very busy, but him and his mom live in this house, and she's basically bedridden, has some medical issues, and this young girl comes to fill a job to help them in the house. And very quickly, Bette Davis, you can tell, does not like the idea, and we find out there's a detached guest house which Bette Davis's daughter lives in, and she is put there for a reason, and things start to unravel. And again, that's all that I'll say about this title, but really, really great. Had a ton of fun with this one. I will give this as well. There is more than a few shades of Psycho at play here, and that's something that my son commented on almost immediately, was because he loves Psycho, and we had that discussion after the film was over about the parallels to between this and Psycho. So that's something to be aware of. If you really enjoy Psycho, that's the accessibility to this title is really easy. It's a very easy recommendation. So 1973 with a runtime of 74 minutes on this one. Again, we get an audio commentary and a TV spot, and then the art by Vince Evans. And last in this trio, we have Elizabeth Montgomery, who of course starred in Bewitched earlier, but here she is in this title, or this film, The Victim. This is from 1972 and is 73 minutes. So again, just a really easy watch. This story follows Elizabeth Montgomery's character. She's talking with her sister, who is about to go through a divorce, and she becomes worried about her sister, wants to go and visit. Her sister seems to be persistent with saying, that she's fine. Well, she ends up calling back, and there's no answer. She's decided that she's just going to make the drive out and go make sure that everything is okay, that she's okay in this obviously turbulent time in her life. And she arrives at her sister's home to find her absent. She cannot find her anywhere. The housekeeper is there, so she begins to ask questions and try and find out where her sister is. So that is The Victim. Again, we get an audio commentary. This one does include a commentary by Amanda Reyes, the art by Vince Evans, and then trailers as well. I've watched the films here. I have not listened to the audio commentaries. I will be very eager to visit those again really soon to listen to the commentaries here. But The Victim, another great one. But again, Scream Pretty Peggy out of those three was tops. In fact, I think for me, I would go number one, Scream Pretty Peggy, then The Screaming Woman, and then finally The Victim. But honestly, all three I really enjoyed, and I'm very, very happy to have them in the collection. All right, next up, this is kind of a multi-part thing here. So we have two made-for-TV films and then a series that followed. There's a lot of people talking about these films and the TV series right now. And when Kino announced these titles, I knew that I had to pick them up, and I'm very, very grateful that I did, because these are absolutely fantastic. So this series, the film and the TV series is starring Darren McGavin. And this is the Night Stalker and the Night Strangler. So these are the made-for-TV movies. And then it was after the fact, so after these were made, that they actually went on with a TV series. So this is Kolchak, the Night Stalker. So we get a really great cover here, and I believe... no, so this is actually a different artist than the other titles that I just showed you. This is newly commissioned art by Mark Maddox. And then the artwork on these two is Sean Phillips. So great artwork all around. And just the very, very basic premise on this. Darren McGavin plays a news reporter. He's a really nosy news reporter, and so the first film, he is in Las Vegas, and then he's in Seattle in the second, and he starts to uncover some weird happenings, and his stories and everything that he researches and finds seem to be buried or denied, that they happened, or that what he discovers exists. But anyways, I know that tells you almost nothing about the series, but this is a really fun one to go in blind on. It's a very, very easy recommendation. I've just started in on the series. I'm just 2 episodes in, but I've seen both of the TV films, and these receive, honestly, my highest recommendation. So much fun. Darren McGavin is such a great lead. If you're like me, I know him mostly as the dad in A Christmas Story, but I'm so grateful to be experience some of his other work here with Kolchak. So very highly recommended for all 3 of these that are now available through Kino. The TV films were released a while ago, but the TV series Kolchak, the Night Stalker, was just released. So definitely jump on that, especially if you want the slipcover, if you're into that. I don't know how limited that is, if it's still available, but that's just something to consider. And last but certainly not least, I want to mention my favorite TV film of all time. It's not even a close race. Now this comes from the Steven Spielberg Director's Collection, which, if this is a set that you do not have, Amazon has had it for ridiculously cheap. I think I've seen it going for $20-25, which is just insanity. But quite a few films on here, some notable kind of high points of his career, especially where his earlier career is concerned. And that's why I love this set. I'm a lot bigger of a fan of Spielberg's work early on. So we're talking 70s through the 90s Spielberg. I absolutely love it. Just seems like he could not miss in that range for the most part. But the film that we are talking about specifically here was his first. And this is Duel. So this is the entry here. So this is a kind of a book format, digibook kind of format, if you want to call it that. But this is Duel, starring Dennis Weaver. This is from 1971. And my gosh, I love this film. In my opinion, this is Spielberg's most underrated film. I don't hear nearly enough people talking about Dennis Weaver's performance, Spielberg's work as a new director. So at the time, so this came out in, like I said, 1971, and was actually written by the great Richard Matheson. And if you're not familiar with his work, you've probably at some point experienced his writing and maybe just didn't know it. He was a steady writer on The Twilight Zone, which is my favorite television show of all time, but just did absolutely extraordinary work on The Twilight Zone. And then he wrote this TV film for Universal. Now, Spielberg had come off of working television show director. In fact, speaking of Rod Serling, he had even shot or directed an episode of The Night Gallery, which, just a little extra side note on that, Kino Lorber is actually releasing the first season of on Blu-ray. I'm very excited for that release. But staying on topic here, Spielberg had kind of gone through a bunch of different TV shows, directing episodes for Night Gallery and Marcus Welby, just a bunch of TV shows. And Sid Sheinberg gave him the opportunity to move on to features. He was looking for an opportunity to do so, and he jumped at the opportunity to work on this film Duel, again written by Richard Matheson. And I feel like when you have a name like Richard Matheson attached to a project, it automatically raises its stock. Anyways, and so thankfully they got Dennis Weaver to perform in the lead role. And basically what you have here is a businessman who is going on a sales call. It's a very important account that he's going to meet with, and so he's driving across the desert to get to this meeting. And very early on in the film, he begins to be kind of stalked by a truck driver. And it's this really gruff, old, rusty, like Peterbilt type truck, and which is really, really menacing. And I love that about the truck. It's very much a character in the film, and so he starts to have issues with this truck. And so he passes him in the lane, and then the truck comes and almost right up to his bumper, and there starts to be this duel, as the title suggests. And Dennis Weaver's performance here is absolutely phenomenal. It is just a really anxiety-ridden performance. And you just feel it. You feel the anxiety that his character is feeling. And at one point, he stops at a small cafe, and he's basically run off the road, or he sees that there's a cafe coming up, and so it's a spot where he can stop and just let the truck pass, and he ends up running his car into a fence, and has a bit of whiplash, and he goes into the cafe. And I love what Spielberg does here with the other customers in the cafe, how we're from the point of view of Dennis Weaver's character, and he's examining everybody that's in the cafe, thinking, who could this truck driver be? Because the truck has made its way into the parking lot, and he realizes that the truck driver is there and has to be inside the cafe. So his examination of each of the customers is really interesting. And I don't want to go too much further into it, but his camera work throughout this film is absolutely phenomenal. And there's some great extra features actually on. Now this is available individually as well, and so you don't have to necessarily buy the director's collection here, although I strongly advise doing so, because there's a lot of great titles in here, and it's just a big bang for your buck. But it is available individually, and there's some great extra features on there, which Spielberg talks in depth about his process with making this film. As is the case with anything made for TV, there's a very, very small production window, and I want to say he shot the entire project in, I can't remember exactly. I believe it was shy of 2 weeks, something like 12 days maybe, that he was able to shoot this film. And wow, it's a great thriller. I love films that are shot in the desert. And I think I might have brought this up at some point in the channel. I live in the desert. I love the desert location films, and this one just hits on all cylinders. And there's even some ways in which Duel was a precursor to Jaws, and there's some interesting food for thought there as well. But the extras are well worth diving into. So anyways, that is my favorite TV film of all time, Duel from 1971, starring Richard Matheson and directed by the great Steven Spielberg. I could talk for a long while about Duel. There's just a lot to love there. But anyways, that's kind of my overview. Now that's not absolutely everything in my collection that's made for TV, but I wanted to just give some of the bigger highlights. Like I said, I don't have, it's actually behind me on the shelf here, Stephen King's It is another great made-for-TV product. And anyways, but these are some of the highlights, ones that I would suggest that you take time watching, or if you're looking for made-for-TV films to bring into your collection, this is a great place to start. And especially with Amanda Reyes's book, Are You in the House Alone? So we'll go ahead and end it there. I'm interested to know down in the comments if there are any made-for-TV films that you're really high on. Let me know if there's any titles that I need to be aware of. I'm always looking forward to discovering new titles, so definitely let me know. And until next time, let's keep the conversation on film alive and well.